Hey guys, it's Kyle Studios here, and in today's video we're going to be discussing how well El Toro at Six Flags Great Adventure has been running during the 2024 season. I know a lot of people have been wondering what the ride is like this year, how much smoother it is, if it's gotten any rougher. So in this video, after my 14 rides I've had on it for the season so far, one of which was on opening day, Saturday, March 16th, and the other was on my second visit of the year, the other 13 that is, on Sunday, March 24th. I'm going to be going over what the experience is like having ridden in pretty much all the different areas of the train. I've tried non-wheeled seats, back wheel seats, front wheel seats. I've pretty much tried everything. Of course, since it is early in the season and hasn't been super warm yet, the ride is definitely running a little slower than usual, but that is because, of course, it's early in the season. Needs some time to warm up and break in, and once we get to the summer, I'm sure it'll be flying again. But I want to start off by just really giving a huge shout out to the Six Flags Great Adventure maintenance team. You can tell they put a lot of effort into El Toro during this off season. There's so much improvement on this ride, especially in the turnaround, which was notoriously one of the roughest areas of the ride. They really put their all in, and you can tell it shows. And I just want to give a huge shout out to them because they are the people who are responsible for the El Toro that we have. So let me just start off by going over some of the different areas of the train and what they feel like. So the front pretty much feels the exact same. You're going to get the same sensations you used to get in the front. One of my favorite seats towards the front of the train is either seat 4 or seat 5. I tend to lean towards seat 5. That's because that is car 2 of the train, and for whatever reason, car 2 is really aggressive over the camelback hills. You just get absolutely thrown out of your seat. And of course, it is a little better to ride on a non-wheeled seat as opposed to that front wheel seat, but we'll get into that a little more later on. The middle of the train is also really good this year, specifically car 4 in row 11, which is the non-wheeled seat. In that car is really, really good. You get some of the most sustained airtime in the train going over those camelback hills. Overall, it's a really great experience there, but of course, the back is still by far the best on El Toro in my opinion. Front is really good, but back overall just has it beat. And you can ride pretty much any row in the back now, and it's going to be very enjoyable. Of course, the two better seats are still going to be 17 and 18 as opposed to 16, and I'll get into that a little bit later on as to why. But I find that the back of a car and the non-wheeled seat are going to be smoother. Row 16 last year was kind of the row we all saw as being the notoriously rough one, and it's definitely not anywhere near as bad as it was last year, but it does still have a bit of a bite to it. But with all that being said, let's go through the entire ride experience on El Toro from start to finish, starting of course with the lift hill. Nothing has changed there. Same can be said with the turn and the drop. Both of them feel just like they felt last year, just as great. The first valley, it does feel ever so slightly smoother than it did last year. I'm not sure if they actually did any track work there this year, but it did feel fairly smooth, pretty much almost the exact same as last year. Then you have the first camelback, great as always. And that second valley, there was kind of a notorious spot where it jackhammered a little bit on the second half of the valley where you could really feel it in the front of a car. That is still there. They didn't really do anything to work on that particular part. It's not necessarily super painful. It's really only something you're going to really feel in the front of a car as opposed to a non-wheel seat or the back of a car. It is there though, so definitely be ready for it. It's not glossy smooth just like the first valley. Second camelback though, just like the first, running great, just as smooth as always. Then we get to the turnaround, and the turnaround is definitely where you're going to feel the biggest difference. It is very noticeable. So when you of course have that twist and everything feels fine, it does start getting a little shaky as you're towards the middle of that turnaround. Nothing unbearable or uncomfortable, but you do feel it start to shake a little bit. And just when it feels like it's going to start jackhammering, butter smooth. They completely replaced all the track down there, or at least it feels like it, because it feels so smooth. This smoothness is almost comparable to an RMC through this area. It was definitely smoother in certain seats than others, but even in the seats where you could feel it maybe a little bit, it was so smooth. From what I understand, this is probably what the ride felt like when it first opened in 2006, and if the whole track can be retracked to be just like that particular section, I think a lot more people would really, really enjoy this ride, and it's great as it is. But if it was that smooth throughout the whole ride, it would be unbelievable. But they really did a phenomenal job in retracking and repairing that turnaround, especially the bottom where you got a lot of jackhammering last year. It was a little uncomfortable. This year, that is completely gone, butter smooth, and I hope it stays that way because it makes the ride so much more enjoyable and easier to marathon. After my 13 rides on it, I felt like I could go for another 13 or maybe even 40 more. It was very easy to re-ride, and that change alone really does make the ride that much better. From there, you have what a lot of people consider to be the weakest part of the ride, and I definitely would tend to agree with that. You have the drop off the turnaround, which pretty much feels the exact same. Then you have that kind of floater hill, and the valley before the floater hill coming off that drop does still have that little bit of a jackhammer when you're in the front row of a car. You will still feel those almost rhythmic jolts where they kind of hit a bit of a pattern. Those are still there, so just be ready for that, but it's really not the worst. The worst area of roughness was the turnaround, and that is now fixed, which is great. And of course you have the Rolling Thunder Hill, feels pretty much the exact same as it did last year. Then you get to the twister section, and the twister section was never super rough, but it always had a bit of a bite to it. And this year you can definitely feel a difference. It definitely feels like through those switchback turns, they've retracked quite a bit, because you really don't get thrown around as much as you used to. And I'm saying that in a good way, where you still do get those lateral forces where you're kind of being thrown side to side. But in terms of the vertical bumpiness, that's pretty much gone. You really don't feel it through there. And as you go through those turns, you just keep that speed going. And I feel like this year in particular, with how slow it's been running since, of course, the cold and everything, it's really carrying its speed a lot more through the layout than it used to. I think the fact that it's so much smoother in the turnaround now kind of takes away from a lot of the speed the ride would have lost due to the extra forces being exerted on the train from that bumpiness where it would kind of lose some speed through that. Now that it's butter smooth through there, I think it carries the speed a lot better, and you can really feel that in the final moments of the ride. Of course, after you have that sort of longer turn and start going into the switchback hills, those pretty much feel the exact same. They still have a bit of a jolt to them, especially the rise into the first one. You definitely feel a little bit of bumpiness, but like I've said, it's really nothing terrible, nothing like what the turnaround was last year. Then you go through another switchback turn, as you guys know, and it's pretty much the exact same. No extreme roughness there, and then the ride is done. So overall, once you get on El Toro for the 2024 season, given that it stays as smooth as it is right now, you're definitely going to notice the smoothness compared to last year. I still think that what they did in the turnaround is one of the best improvements they have ever made to the ride. It really is mind-blowing just how much of a difference that has made, both in the enjoyability, re-rideability, in terms of the smoothness of the entire coaster. It really just contributes a lot to the ride, and it really can't be stated enough. So highly recommend going to Great Adventure as soon as you possibly can to get a few rides in on El Toro. As for my seat preference, I still think the non-wheeled seat is going to be your best bet for smoothness, and if you have a choice of wheel seat, definitely go for the back wheel seat. The front wheel seats definitely still give the roughest ride on the train. It's not necessarily super bad. It's not like it was in years past where it would really be painful, but it is certainly rougher than the back of a car or the middle of a car, so just keep that in mind. If you're going with someone who maybe doesn't want to get thrown around too much, I definitely recommend going towards the middle of the train on a non-wheeled seat. If you want the most extreme ride experience though, I would definitely go for either a back car wheel seat, or a non-wheeled seat can do the trick as well towards the front or back ends of the train. That's where you're really going to get the most extreme ride experience. But with that being said, that is going to conclude my sort of analysis here of how El Toro is running in 2024 Great Adventure. If you couldn't tell from the video, I think it's running better than it has in a very long time. It's very smooth. The area that was notoriously the roughest is definitely not that anymore, which is great to see. I want to know what you guys think about how El Toro is running in 2024. Do you notice the smoothness as much as I do? Because I think it makes a huge difference for the ride. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more Six Flags Great Adventure content coming soon to Hollywood Studios. Goodbye, guys.